Help me to stay competitive against the big multinational corporations by subscribing to this channel, hitting the notification bell, liking the video, and maybe leaving a comment in the comment sections below. Thank you very much and enjoy the video.
Any famous last quotes? This might be the last image I make of you in your office and stuff.
Get rid of them! We kicked them out! It's dumb. It took us 2 years. It's dumb. But we managed on our terms and conditions.
We finally turned him into a colony, and that was our plan from the first moment.
What you just saw there was EU officials in Strasbourg and Brussels bragging and laughing about how they thought they had turned Britain into a colony. Not only that, they have convinced themselves that they kicked us out after the Brexit vote. Bearing in mind the video you watched was in 2018 when we were still under the leadership or so-called leadership of Theresa May, who was by far the most inadequate, limp, weak leader this country has ever had since Chamberlain in the Second World War. And you saw them laughing, saying that they'd kicked us out of the European Union. No, we left on a landslide referendum in which we voted to leave your bloc because we knew all along, as you said, your plan was to turn us into a colony. And I'm not sure if you've heard the British national anthem, but it says in the British national anthem that Britain shall never, ever, ever be slaves. So what you just saw there was the celebrations and the countdown to when Britain officially left the EU in London. And as you can see, the crowd is vitalised, the crowd is ramped up, hyped up. Everyone was sharing. For the first time in Britain for a long time, everyone had a shared goal. Now that's something Britain and a lot of Western countries have done without, so especially since globalism really ramped up in the late 90s. We've had multiculturalism, we've had failed social experiment after failed social experiment, forced diversity, multiculturalism, this, that, the other. You know, it's just globalism, it's just forced, and it has driven a wedge between people. We've been told to celebrate differences, and I'm not saying you can't celebrate differences, but what I'm saying is that goes against human nature. That's just the way it is. Birds of a feather will flock together. That is a biological fact, and you can't get around that. You can try to, and that's exactly why we had forced diversity and the altar of multiculturalism. And by the way, it only ever seems to be Western people who worship at the altar of multiculturalism. I have noticed that there never seems to be any other devotees in the church of multiculturalism offering sacrifices to the altar of multiculturalism. It only seems to be Westerners. Anyway, going back to the point, because I have digressed a little bit. Last night in London at the countdown, there was tens of thousands of people, all for the first time in a generation, there together with a shared belief, a shared goal, a shared dream, and it was a magical thing to witness and to behold, and Brexit has been an amazing thing to be a part of. And the people who are opposing it now, because most have just accepted it, even the people who voted against it, the ordinary people who were swayed to vote Remain, they're behind it now. The only ones who remain now, who are still adamantly opposed to Brexit, are the die-hard leftists, the so-called progressives. What is it you're progressing towards? Now, to digress again, I just want to make a quick point. You'll often find words, buzzwords, that the left use to force on people, like diversity and progressive. These are very carefully selected words, and they are selected so that if you are to oppose it, you are at an immediate disadvantage. For example, progressive and progression sounds like a good thing on face value. So if you are arguing against it, you are arguing from a disadvantaged position. So you need to use all of your resources and skills and argue with facts and logic to get people, not only to win the debate, but to get people to see that progressives and progressing is not always a good thing. For example, Germany in the Second World War, or before the Second World War, progressed towards fascism. It was progression. So you see how this can not always be a good thing, and it's the same with diversity. We are told that diversity is a good thing. It sounds great, doesn't it? More of something sounds great. But as we've seen with forced diversity, that is not always the case. Anyway, let's move on, because I've digressed again. Let's move on to Nigel Farage and his excellent speech he gave to the European Union.
Final chapter, the end of the road. A 47-year political experiment that the British, frankly, have never been very happy with. My mother and father signed up to a common market, not to a political union, not to flags, anthems, presidents, and now you even want your own army. For me, it's been 27 years of campaigning and over 20 years here in this Parliament. I'm not particularly happy with the agreement we're being asked to vote on tonight, but Boris has been remarkably bold in the last few months, and Ms von der Leyen, he's made it clear, he's promised us there'll be no level playing field. And on that basis, I wish him every success in the next round of negotiations. I really do. But the most significant point is this. What happens at 11 p.m. this Friday, the 31st of January, 2020, marks the point of no return. Once we've left, we are never coming back, and the rest, frankly, is detail. We're going, we will be gone. And that should be the summit of my own political ambitions. I walked in here, as I've said before, you all thought it was terribly funny. You stopped laughing in 2016. But my view has changed of Europe since I joined. In 2005, I saw the constitution that had been drafted by Giscard and others. I saw it rejected by the French in a referendum. I saw it rejected by the Dutch in a referendum. And I saw you in these institutions ignore them, bring it back as the Lisbon Treaty, and boast you could ram it through without there being referendums. Well, the Irish did have a vote and did say no and were forced to vote again. You're very good at making people vote again, but what we've proved is the British are too big to bully, thank goodness. So I became an outright opponent of the entire European project. I want Brexit to start a debate across the rest of Europe. What do we want from Europe? If we want trade, friendship, cooperation, reciprocity, we don't need a European Commission. We don't need a European Court. We don't need these institutions and all of this power. And I can promise you, both in UKIP and indeed in the Brexit Party, we love Europe, We just hate the European Union. It's as simple as that. So I'm hoping this begins the end of this project. It's a bad project. It isn't just undemocratic, it's anti-democratic, and it puts in that front row. It gives people power without accountability. People who cannot be held to account by the electorate, and that is an unacceptable structure. Indeed, there's an historic battle going on now across the West, in Europe, America, and elsewhere. It is globalism against populism. And you may loathe populism, but I tell you a funny thing, it's becoming very popular. And it has great benefits. No more financial contributions, no more European Court of Justice, no more common fisheries policy, no more being talked down to, no more being bullied, no more Guy Verhofstadt. I mean, what's not to like? I know you're going to miss us. I know you want to ban our national flags, but we're going to wave you goodbye, and we'll look forward in the future to working with you as sovereign.
If you disobey the rules, you get cut off. Could we please remove the flags? Mr. Farage, could we remove the flags, please?
That session's all over. Finished. He's gone.
Well, I'm waving my flag. I don't know about you, but I will wave my flag high and dry and proud, and everything is just great about Brexit. Now, you'll see there, if you read in between the lines of what you just saw, they have a rule where you're not allowed to wave flags. Any member state flag, you're not allowed to wave the flag. It wasn't just the British, it's any. If you read in between the lines, because people actually make these rules up, that should show you they're never... You see, they drip feed their socialism and their Marxism into you. They never wanted a situation in Europe where the member states still had their own flag. This is why they outlaw or they stop people in the chamber from waving their own flag. They have the European flag all over Brussels and Strasbourg, but you're not allowed to wave member state flags. And another thing I want to mention is Nigel Farage was very right in saying that his parents' generation, his parents, because he's only in his mid-50s, he looks miraculously young, I think, for someone his age. He's in his mid-50s, I believe now. He looks certainly in his 40s to me, and he drinks and smokes quite a lot. Anyway, going back to the point I was making, his parents voted for a common market. Sounds great. That was the first drip in a long line of drips and drips and drips to get Western Europe slowly acclimatised to Marxism and socialism, which is exactly what it is. It is a Marxist bloc. And not only that, the European Union, and I've been saying this for a long time, the European Union is the second great engine of the globalist desire for in what it genuinely believe would be a one world government. The first engine is the United Nations. These two engines work in tandem together, the European Union and the United Nations. Now, the United Nations, it's even in the name, the United Nations. Just think about it. They're trying to unite the nations into one nation. In my opinion, you can call me a kook if you want. You can call me a conspiracy theorist if you want. However, we have already seen a lot of countries transfer their immigration and asylum policies over to the United Nations. These people are unaccountable, in many cases faceless. Do you know who they are? Nor do I. And that's exactly what I'm saying. Now, going back to the common market. We had a common market, and if the European Union, as it is today, stayed a common market, there wouldn't be any problem at all. We'd probably still be in the European Union. Not only that, even in its present state today, if the European Union just gave us some leverage and control over our own immigration policies, then Brexit wouldn't be happening either. But they are so rigid, they are so inflexible, they're so stubborn in their choice and everything they do. They forced us to vote Brexit. That's what a lot of people don't understand. They forced us to do this. Not only that, but they tried to get out of it repeatedly. We had to vote in not one, but two Conservative governments the second time round with a gigantic landslide supermajority just to push this through. It was opposed at every point by the elites who were in on all this. And this just goes to show you, we were pushed to this. I'm a working class person, and I can tell you, I was 16, 17 in the late 90s, and I can tell you that in the late 90s, it was easier to get a job. The jobs, if you adjust for inflation, were better paid. Not only that, housing was more available. Housing was cheaper. Prices of everything was cheaper. You know, commodities were cheaper, quality of life was better, and a lot of the reasons why we've gone so far downhill is because of the European Union. And that's not a slight on European people, because I've worked in warehouses and in factories with people from the European Union. I personally think people from Slovakia are very beautiful. I think Slovakian women are absolutely beautiful. I think a lot of people from, especially Eastern Europe, are very intelligent and have a great work ethic. But the European Union, as it is not for us. You forced us to vote Brexit. And finally, the people you saw at the beginning of this video who were laughing and sneering at us come from countries in which, or member states I should say, they don't want to be seen as countries, they are member states of the Marxist European Union, the Marxist bloc that it is. They are member states that are currently seeing firefighters and police officers fighting amongst themselves, as you're about to see in a moment. France, I'm afraid to say, is a zombie country, or nation state, as I should say, because they don't see themselves as a country anymore. They are a ostensibly proud member state of the Marxist European Union bloc. However, as I said, they are a zombie nation. They are on their feet, but they're not quite alive. They are the walking dead in societal terms. They are racked with infighting, what could be described as a one notch away from civil war. They have rampant terrorism. Tourism has just dissolved and disappeared because tourists from wealthy and influential countries are habitually targeted by the refugees, or fake refugees I should say, that are all over the place in Paris, and the same can be said for Germany. Angela Merkel has utterly destroyed Germany, the proud nation that it once was. If the internet has done one thing good above all others, it has given the ordinary people, the hoi polloi like myself and yourself, the ability to gather the tools needed to make decisions for ourselves based on what we see, hear and experience without the mainstream media, who by the way are trying to shut down alternative media sources such as myself from speaking because they are losing influence with the likes of you and me. The internet has given us the ability to see globalism and the altar of multiculturalism and of course the European Union for what it really is. And it is only a matter of time before this mother of all social experiments that was the European Union, the king of social experiments, crashes into the ground. And when that happens, it will leave in its wake nothing but civil war, strife, famine and ruin. Thank you very much for watching this video. Our shout outs to Adrian Gutteridge from you know where, from my hometown. You're a good man, you're a true friend and a patriot. I'll see you guys tomorrow in British Resistance down in London. Dennis, Jason, Mark O'Sullivan and Mark Judge, you're good guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you to everyone else. Please like, share and subscribe and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you and goodbye.